All right, listen, guys, we're not going to bullshit you and tell you that Drake is dropping a new album in 2022 because if you look at the history of his album releases, 2022 just doesn't follow the pattern. So I'll take you guys through the history of Drake's album releases. So in 2010, he dropped Thank Me Later. 1 year later, 2011, drops Take Care. 2 years after that, he drops Nothing Was the Same. 3 years after that, in 2016, he drops Views. 2 years later, in 2018, he dropped Scorpion, and 3 years after that, he dropped Certified Lover Boy in 2021. And Drake hasn't released albums in back-to-back years in over a decade, so I wouldn't expect an album by Drake in 2022, but I would expect a mixtape because if you look at what Drake's done since 2015, in 2015, he dropped If You're Reading This It's Too Late. After Views came out, 1 year later, he drops More Life as a mixtape. After Scorpion comes out in 2018, he drops Care Package, which wasn't a new project, but it was a compilation of older songs. And then right before Certified Lover Boy comes out, we get Dark Lane demo tape. So Drake is known to always be consistently dropping projects on a yearly basis. So does this tell you that Drake will probably be dropping a mixtape in 2022?
It's always a good guess with Drake because he's been dropping consistently since 2013, I believe, right? He hasn't missed a single year of music.
2014 he didn't drop.
2014.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the last time like he really didn't drop in a year, and we're close to a decade. That's a long time that he's been putting out music. So I think this year will be the same. He probably will put something out, but I'm not sure because I'm in a weird spot with Drake right now. Listen, I like Certified Lover Boy. I think it was a good album. We did our review on it, and I think that it doesn't have a taint in his armor whatsoever. I think that he still has an incredible catalog. I still revisit a bunch of different projects, but where does he advance off of Certified Lover Boy? Because what a lot of people were talking about, at least in the community, in our community, was like there wasn't necessarily a big evolution from Drake. And I'm going to ask you this now. Do you think that's even needed from Drake in his career now for how much he's given us, how much he's revolutionized the game, and how much value he's given us throughout his discography?
Well, listen, I just think that Drake got comfortable and stuck to a formula that he knew would work, and maybe he is lacking that inspiration to create something new. But the bigger question for me is is he really gonna be working on something this year? Because if you look at what Drake's up to right now, he's kicking it on some jet skis in the Turks and Caicos. He's gambling on his computer. He's just chilling out. So the real question is he getting ready to saddle up? Because he always does seem to be working on new music. And if you take it back to January of 2022, Metro Boomin posted a story on Instagram of Future working in the studio that had this dim blue lighting. And then Drake also posts a story of what seems to be the same studio. And then these questions were brought up of, is he dropping a collab album with Future? Maybe What a Time to Be Alive Part 2. But nonetheless, it just seems like Drake is always working. But to go back to what you were saying, I mean, at this point, I feel like Drake has to break out of the philosophy that he's used to make albums in recent time and go with something more focused. Go with something that's more concise. What I would want from Drake in 2022 is a mixtape that has a bit more focus, that has maybe more of a, I would say, coherent sound. Because what I like Drake for, what I've loved about Drake's projects recently is that he's giving you a full course meal. He's giving you some R&B jams. There's songs where he's going in lyrically. You get the island vibes, but I want him to hone in on one of those sounds, bro. I want that Drake project that's between 10 and 12 songs, and that is filled maybe with just dancehall songs. Give me some Madiba rhythms, give me some controllers. I want one sound from Drake instead of the whole plethora of sounds which he's been famous to do recently. But what about you? Is that something that you want, or do you like the fact that Drake is versatile on these projects?
Honestly, I love both of those sides of Drake. You've seen it mostly on, let's say, what a Time to Be Alive. I mean, you've also seen it on If You're Reading This It's Too Late, where it has that sort of cohesive, focused sound where he's not necessarily trying to go anywhere too crazy else. But I mean, what's so interesting about Drake, though, is that's sort of his whole skill set, right? Is being able to go into so many bags. And I think that maybe at a certain point, if you make him hone in on one song, kind of clipping the guy.
You're not clipping him, though.
I don't know at this point, all right? Because listen, I understand that Certified Lover Boy didn't necessarily meet up to our standards, but it's our standards. It's the fans. At the end of the day, we're obviously allowed to ask what we want, but I mean, and we're allowed to have conversations about it as we're doing right now, but where he strives, I think, is on that diversity side of things. So do you think it would be clipping, let's say, the potential of a project if we were to hone in on one song? Or do you think that... Okay, so I'll just let you answer it now, okay? Answer that question for me.
To me, it's just the fact that I feel like if he hones in on one sound, the project will have a direction. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be easier for him to focus on one style, and it would be Drake being innovative because that's something that he's never done before. Even if you take it back to, if you're reading this, it's too late.
You still have Jungle.
That's more of his prominent project where he's rapping for a big part of it. But like you said, you have songs like Jungle that are more on the R&B side. So it'd be really cool, and it would be the first time in Drake's career that he makes a full project that has one style where he does not steer off.
He kind of did it on Thank Me Later and So Far Gone.
No, you have your mix of R&B and your more rapidy rap type songs. Like, there's always been that balance, which I appreciate, which makes those track lists refreshing. But what would be refreshing in 2022 from Drake after getting 10 plus projects from him would be for him to focus on one sound.
Okay, I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah,
I gotta ask you a question.
Go for it.
Because this is a big conversation right now, especially as two Drizzy fans. Like, we've been listening to his music for a while. If that's the case, what is that one sound you want him to go into? You have to choose whatever it is, right? You're talking to Drake right now. You're in a conversation with him, and Drake randomly asks you, bro, tell me what you want, man. Literally, I'll make it for you. 12 songs. What type of Drizzy are you choosing to be able to get that sort of 12-song track list? Tell me. What do you want, man? I mean, listen, you were the one that was asking.
Yeah, I mean, the Island Vibes would be one, but the only thing I see is custom owls from Tiffany and some gunners that'll hit you out of nowhere like Epiphany. I want Drake to be on those Omerta, the diplomatic immunity type of time where he's just, sparring. He's giving me those bars. I want that full-on hip-hop project from Drake because we're also at a time where people, for some stupid reason, reduce him to a pop star and don't give him his flowers as an MC. And he really is talented as a lyricist. And I want him to show me that. And I want him to, this is kind of selfish and it's speaking to what I want from Drake, but to me, for him to satisfy that hunger within me as a Drake fan, he's got to bring the bars. So that's what I would want.
Do you feel as if you were missing that on CLB?
Yes. Even though I got Champagne Poetry and a couple of other gems, that's what I was missing from Drake. But what kind of Drake album would you want in 2022?
Oh, I'm on that same boat, man. Absolutely. Give me a 30 for 30 freestyle. You know, give me a Tuscan Leather. Give me a Diplomatic Immunity. Give me an Omerta.
Bring Boy Wonder back.
Bring fucking Boy Wonder back. That was probably the biggest crime of CLB. Remember, we were going through the production list and we're like, how the fuck isn't Boy Wonder on this album? And it's an interesting situation because like he's had, credits on all of Drake's probably biggest hits and best songs. Like he's literally helped Drake craft that sound. And I feel as if that was something that was missing from CLB, to be honest with you. So this new project is very interesting because there's a lot of different lanes for him to go into. But, it's not that I'm not a fan of the R&B stuff anymore. I feel as if I've gotten enough of it, though. You have a whole B-side of it on Scorpion. You've gotten a load of it off of CLB. You have it on More Life. It's prominent on Views. You have a couple of songs, if you're reading this, it's too late. Take Care, Nothing Was the Same has it. Maybe it's time, to really start focusing on that. And, like, even it doesn't have to be, like, hippity hop, it doesn't have to be super lyrical, like it could even be him like diving into, let's say, different, like I would say trap bags that he's able to do, if that makes sense to you, where like maybe you could get like Gunna or Future on there where he's like just going at it and he's speeding up with it, where it's not too complex a lyricism but like it's more focused on his flows and the way that he's delivering things. Like I appreciate Drake for that as well.
Or the mogul direction, that could be interesting too.
But I feel as if we've gotten also enough of that.
We have gotten a lot of that. You're right.
We have gotten a lot of that, and like I feel as if also, for a Drake standpoint, if you look at his least streamed songs on all of his albums, example, Views or Take Care, songs like The Ride or Views are his least streamed on those projects. Like
and it's
Star
the one
67.
that show his rapping technique the most.
Those are my favorite fucking Drake songs.
Bro.
And those are the ones that are the least streamed and appreciated by fans, low-key. So even from his end, like...
Is there a demand for that? But, we're part of that demand. And... listen, another interesting topic, too, that I want to ask you is, like, there's been this narrative that maybe Drake's own judgment towards his own music has been jaded because there's this conversation of how immaculate Drake's unreleased catalog is. And we've heard a lot of the songs, bro. We've bumped them. If you look at tracks like I Did, should have made Certified Lover Boy. You look at songs like Mention Me, and it's some of Drake's best material in years, and yet they don't make the cuts of the album. So do you think that, it's a case of maybe him being unsure of what the fans would be the most receptive to? How do you feel about that whole situation?
I think it's stuff? It's tough, man. It's a really tough conversation. There is a lot of gems in his unreleased catalog, and that's what's interesting about it too. Is like you listen to the unreleased stuff, and you're like, this would be your favorite rapper's best song.
Yeah,
like there's no hiding that conversation, and there's so many fucking trolls online, bro, that troll Drake for his music. I think he's actually an overhated artist. Like,
he is.
Sincerely, like there's people that literally go out of their way to trash his music, and I'm like, do you hear the type of production styles and like the type of engineering and the type of writing that goes into these songs? Like, how could you call this trash? Like the people that were saying that, don't hold any weight in this conversation, but I think that's what Drake has to do. It's just kind of craft something that's coherent. Like that's the thing too, is like this is all speculation, right? But what could you really say? You just want something that's gonna hit home, like maybe Dark Lane demo tapes did. And that's a super underrated project within his discography and one of his most low key, but has some of his best writing material in his whole discography. Chicago Freestyle, From Florida with Love, Losses. There's so much quality within that track list, and you have R&B cuts. You have songs like Not You Too. So you have songs like Desires.
Yeah.
So that's where I think he has to go. He just has to create something that captivates a mood, but he always kind of does that for me.
He does. Do you know what his favorite album is?
No, I have no idea.
His own favorite album is Nothing Was the Same, and he was talking about this in the Rap Radar interview, and he said it's because it's his most concise album. So I hope that Drake goes towards that philosophy once again, making an album that is more focused, that's tighter as a track list, because I think that'll have his judgment being best, as he can kind of narrow it down to the very best songs that he's working at, during a specific period of time. But last question before we end this off, is Drake dropping a project in 2022?
If I had to put my money on it?
Put your money on it, man. What are you saying? He's been doing it every fucking year.
He has been doing it. Yeah, I mean, the track record speaks otherwise. Like, I don't know why I'd say no if, like, he's done it for the past, what is it now, like 7 years?
Something like that.
Something like that. So I'd say yes. I don't think it's going to be a full-blown album rollout. I think it's going to be something where he's just going to put out a collection of songs.
An EP or a mixtape.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to be on that sort of vibe. But it's going to be very interesting, guys, because we will be covering whatever sort of new Drake material gets released this year, and we'll be keeping you guys updated with the album review. We're going to be going through the whole rollout. If there isn't, if there is even one, whatever ends up happening with this album, NFR Podcast will be covering it. Not only that, guys, but we will be reacting to this album or project if it ends up happening on our Patreon reaction tier, where we listen with our community to live albums every single week. So we go through the motion. We have a whole chat where everyone comes through, listens to new albums on Friday at 12 a.m. Eastern time. Regardless of the project, we always go through it, and it's a super fun experience. So if you guys want to join the Patreon plan, go to the link in the description. It's right there for you guys, and thank you so much for watching this. We'll catch you in the next one.